There was a deceased white moonlight in Theodore's heart in the 4th year of our marriage. He took in a girl who bore a striking resemblance to that white moonlight, and I was the last person in the world to find out. That day, the girl and I wore identical red dresses. Theodore frowned at me. "Red doesn't suit you. Go change it." I didn't take off the new dress. Instead, I chose to replace the husband who disliked seeing me in red. When the girl beside Theodore realized we were wearing the same dress, she pouted unhappily. He turned to her, whispered something in her ear, and a little girl named Jennifer obediently turned and left. Then Theodore navigated through the perfume-scented, elegantly dressed crowd in the hall and stopped in front of me. He looked at me, his brow furrowed slightly. "Red doesn't suit you. Go change it." As soon as he said that, everyone at the table fell silent, yet, one by one, they couldn't help but steal glances at me. Just as the air seemed to freeze, someone suddenly scoffed, "How ridiculous. It's like Dong's Hai imitating Ixishi's frown, just a poor copy." I lifted my eyes to the speaker, Theodore's cousin. She was also the closest friend of his deceased white moonlight. No one had told me about that early departed love of Theodore's when we got engaged or married. I only found out when I was pregnant with Daniel, close to my due date. In the 4th year of marriage, he took in a girl who looked just like that white moonlight, and again, I was the last person in the world to know. Seeing me sitting motionless and silent, Theodore's expression darkened slightly, and his voice rose a little. "Elena?" My gaze drifted past the people seated before me and landed on Theodore's face. Rarely for him, he was wearing a dark red tie, perhaps a playful gesture between lovers. I stared at that hint of crimson on his chest, and suddenly the world around me went eerily quiet before he could open his mouth again. Likely to voice his displeasure, I stood up, pushed back my chair, and walked outward. Theodore's expression softened a little. "Hurry back once you've changed." I pressed my lips together, even managed a faint smile at him. But didn't say a word. I didn't go to the lounge to change my new dress, nor did I return to the banquet hall. I simply turned to the deserted side door and left directly. The weather had been overcast when I arrived, and now a fine drizzle was falling. It was late spring, so the rainy night wasn't cold. I didn't bother with an umbrella and stepped right into the rain. When I returned to Lancaster, the maid told me cheerfully, "Madam, Lady Lancaster has brought the young master. They were waiting for you." Joy surged in my heart, and I quickened my pace. I'd given birth to Daniel in our 1st year of marriage, but Lady Lancaster had said my body was severely weakened by the delivery and that I might not have the energy to care for him. So when Daniel was a month old, she came and took him away. I'd been devastated, barely recovered, too weak even to chase after them. I'd cried and begged Theodore. But all I got was 1 day a week with my son. I cherished those days deeply, but time flew by, and Daniel grew up. Growing farther and farther away from me as I climbed the steps, I heard laughter filling the house. Daniel was skillfully maneuvering a remote-controlled car, surrounded by Lady Lancaster maids and nannies, all clapping and cheering. I couldn't help but step forward, my eyes fixed on that small figure. Daniel glanced up at me, then went back to playing with his car. I waited patiently until he finished, then knelt down to hug him, but he turned and ran straight to Lady Lancaster. "Grandma, I've seen Mommy. Let us go home, please." He clung to her legs, snuggling affectionately into her arms. Lady Lancaster beamed, lifting him up. "Grandma's sweetheart. We'll go home right now." My hand still hung there, foolishly outstretched, clutching nothing but cold air. I've always been so slow, so late to realize things like how Theodore had humiliated me in public. Yet the hurt only sank in on my way home. It wasn't until long after Lady Lancaster had left with Daniel that I crumpled to the floor and cried silently. There didn't seem to be anything or anyone here worth staying for. It was late at night when I went upstairs to pack a few things. All my documents and some personal items. Everything else stayed. Walking through the courtyard, I saw the crumpled trees in the rain mist. I'd planted them myself the year I married Theodore. I'd loved them so much, but I only paused for 2 minutes before walking away, never looking back. Theodore was slightly tipsy. He checked his watch. Elena had been gone for almost an hour. Changing a dress shouldn't take this long, not when the lounge was just upstairs. He frowned, pulled out his phone and texted her. "Why haven't you come back?" No reply came. Then his assistant approached, bending down to whisper respectfully, Sir, the driver says Madam left earlier, heading home." Theodore's expression turned icy. It was the first time Elena had acted out. And he'd always hated such behavior from women. Send for Jennifer. The assistant's heart skipped a beat. But he nodded. Right away, sir. When Jennifer returned, she had changed her clothes. And her hair hung loose around her shoulders. She must have just cried. Her eyes were still red. And her face was completely free of makeup. A pure, unadorned beauty like a lotus emerging from clear water. Theodore's gaze lingered on her. Obviously lost in a trance. Mr. Lancaster, did I do something wrong tonight? Jennifer pressed her lips together. And lifted her eyes to meet his at the outer corner of her left eye. Two tiny moles sat. Now more distinct without makeup. That detail, above all, made her resemble Theodore's white moonlight. Lilith. Theodore reached out, cupping Jennifer's face, and bent to kiss those moles. Through the haze of alcohol, he seemed to murmur softly, Lilith. 3 days passed before Theodore learned that Elena had left their marital home that night and never returned. He didn't pay it much mind. Elena, though the youngest daughter of the Montague family, was nothing like her sisters. Abducted as a child, she'd endured unspeakable hardships. Old scars still marked her body by the time the Montagues found her. She was 20. Hadn't even finished college and had grown into a quiet, timid soul. The Montagues never took to her. She what I am. And neither did Lady Lancaster. So when they married, Lady Lancaster laid down a condition. The wedding would proceed, but the marriage certificate would wait until Eleanor bore a son. Elena later gave birth to Daniel, yet Lady Lancaster never mentioned the certificate again. And Elena, meek as she was, never dared to ask. A full week after Elena's departure, in late April, Theodore returned to the marital home. As he stepped out of the car, his eyes fell on the cropple trees, their blossoms already starting to wilt. The maid, sensing his foul mood, hurried to explain. Madame always tended to them herself, so she never let us interfere. Has she come back? Theodore asked. Walking forward, his brow furrowing deeper, the maid shook her head, voice quiet. No, sir, she hasn't returned. What day is it? Theodore suddenly asked. Saturday, sir. Did you fetch Daniel? Every Saturday was sacred. Elena's fixed day with their son. Yes, sir. He should be here any minute. Theodore nodded, his expression settling back into its usual indifference. Tell Elena. If she's not back in an hour, send Daniel to the old house. Daniel sat on the living room carpet, unwrapping a new toy. When the maid entered, speaking cautiously, Sir. I've called Madam. Theodore grunted in acknowledgement, his gaze on Daniel's small face. The boy looked so much like Elena. Those eyes, with their delicate double lids and thick blonde lashes, that fair skin, inherited from her. A lovely, hadn't-fulfilled my obsession. Precious child. But the maid lingered, hesitating before adding. Madam says. She isn't coming back. Theodore's head snapped up. The maid froze, terrified. Even Daniel seemed to sense the tension, setting down his toy after a long silence. Theodore let out a cold laugh. He stood and called to Daniel, Daniel, Daddy, I'll take you home. Daniel stood, but asked, Aren't we waiting for Mommy? No. Theodore bent to lift him. Is Mommy not coming back? Daniel sounded faintly pleased, yet oddly unenthusiastic. As they walked through the living room, down the steps and past the half-withered cropple garden, Theodore finally answered, She's being disobedient. So we're not letting her come home yet. As a punishment. This might be the most at ease I've felt in years. Since returning to the Montagues, marrying Theodore, giving birth to Daniel. No more rigid 6:30 wake-ups. No more forcing down Western breakfast to please Theodore. No more counting the days until Saturday, only to cry myself to sleep that night. No more wondering when Theodore would come home. Or if he would at all. I can sleep until 10, then take my time making myself a bowl of spicy beef noodles. I can binge a show until 3 noon, crying through a whole box of tissues. Even when Daniel's preschool teacher called, inviting me to a parent-child event, sadness pricked me, but I answered steadily. I have no ties to the Lancasters anymore. Please don't contact me about Daniel in the future. Thank you. After hanging up, I stared at the number the Lancaster maid called from. Every Saturday. Tomorrow would be Saturday again. At 9. Instead of waiting for their call, I dialed first. Madam. Sir, it's Madam calling. The maid's voice sounded flustered, almost joyful. Theodore felt a faint stir in his chest, but his tone stayed cold. Tell her Daniel won't be coming today. The maid hesitated, then relayed the message. A moment later, she returned, Madam asks if you'd be willing to take the call. Sir. Theodore set down his newspaper, lowering his eyes to slowly roll up his shirt sleeves before holding out his hand. Give it here. As he took the phone, a soft, steady breath reached his ear, so distant, yet so close, like a feather brushing his heart. Through the floor-to-ceiling window, he saw the crumpled trees in full view. Suddenly, a memory flashed through his mind. The day she'd come running toward him with a bouquet of flowers, nearly crashing into him. It was after their marriage, one of the rare times she'd shown such liveliness. Theodore thought she'd taken the initiative to reach out. He'd offer her a way back. Elena. Do you realize you were wrong? The soft breath on the other end of the line seemed to pause. Then her gentle, flowing voice came through. Theodore, we never registered our marriage for years ago. I know, he replied, curling his lips in a casual smirk. After all this fuss. So she wanted to formalize their marriage. It was only a matter of time. He thought merely a trivial formality. So if we part ways now, there's no need for tedious divorce proceedings. The smile vanished from Theodore's lips in an instant. What did you say? His fingers tightened around the phone, knuckles whitening. Don't have the maid call me every Saturday anymore. I won't be coming back. I've also made it clear to Daniel's preschool teacher. Elena, what are you getting at? Theodore, I won't claim any of your assets. But I won't return the $8.88 million you gave me when we married. Nor any of the gold jewelry. Think of it as compensation for giving birth to Daniel. In nearly 30 years of life, Theodore had never felt such rage. Yet, when anger peaked, his voice turned eerily calm. Have you thought this through? I have. Elena's answer held no hesitation. Theodore ended the call abruptly. The maid, standing at a distance, dared not even breathe. Just moments ago, Mr. Lancaster had seemed to be smiling, and they'd all let out a quiet sigh of relief. These past days, the atmosphere at home had grown strange. Oppressively so. But now, after hanging up, Theodore's face was cold enough to chill the air. Take the phone, he said. Rising to his feet and summoning the maid, he took a few steps toward the door. Then glanced at the crumpled trees, feeling his irritation mount. Turning back, he ordered, go upstairs and rearrange the master bedroom. Clear out all of Elena's things. Put them somewhere else. I don't want to see them. The maid hesitated, then nodded quickly. Theodore strode outside. His phone vibrated. A call coming in. He glanced at the screen. Jennifer, but he had no desire to answer. A fake was a fake. Jennifer couldn't compare to Lilith. And suddenly, he realized she couldn't even compare to Elena. That night, he'd been wrong to humiliate Elena in public. She was angry, hurt, unwilling to return. Let her throw her little tantrum, he thought with her temperament. Once she'd been wronged or hit a wall out there, she'd come crawling back. But Elena vanished after that call. There was no word from her once. When Daniel fell ill, Lady Lancaster brought him over, hoping Elena would give him a massage. Daniel had always been frail, and Elena had taught herself all sorts of pediatric remedies. But when the maid called, the number was disconnected. Lady Lancaster flew into a rage. I've never seen such a heartless mother. If she doesn't come back today, she never will. The Lancasters don't need her. She stormed off with Daniel in her arms. Theodore sat on the sofa, silent for hours. By dusk, he told the driver, take me to the Montagus. The Montagus were surprised to see him, ushering him in with elaborate deference. Noticing his dark mood, Mr. and Mrs. Montague exchanged a glance, then asked cautiously, did Tang Tang do something wrong again? They'd never cared much for this daughter they'd struggled to reclaim, and with the marriage still unregistered after nearly 4 years, they felt nothing but resentment. Theodore's hand paused as he lifted his teacup. Has she been home these past few days? The Montagus looked even more bewildered. No, she hasn't. Theodore set the cup down slowly. She hadn't returned to the Montagus. She had no other connections in the city. Where had Elena been all this time? Did you two have a fight, Mrs. Montague asked, even more tentatively. Theodore stood up. Just a minor disagreement. It must be Elena's fault, Mr. Montague said, frowning. I'll call her and give her a good scolding. Theodore stopped him. No need, we'll handle it ourselves. Of course spouses may quarrel. But bygones are soon bygones. Mr. Montague said, smiling as he saw him out. As Theodore reached his car, he turned back. Elena's household registration. You have that, don't you, Mr. Montague froze. Then grinned. Yes, we do. If you need it, Theodore, I'll fetch it right away. Theodore shook his head. Keep it for now. When I need it, I'll have Elena come get it, of course. She's welcome anytime. The Montagues beamed as they watched him leave. They'd long given up hope that Theodore and Elena would ever register their marriage, even bracing themselves for Elena's expulsion and Theodore's remarriage. But now, this was a sign. He wanted to make it official for the Montagues. It was a momentous victory. No one would dare mock them again for being only half related to the Langsaders. After staying for half a month in the town where I lived as a child, I traveled to many other places I'd always wanted to visit. I've always been thrifty. After all, with this large sum of money in hand, it should be more than enough to last me a lifetime alone. I planned to keep traveling. And if I came across a town I liked, I'd buy a small one-bedroom, one-living-room apartment to settle down. As a child, I was passed from hand to hand, fostered out, and sent to an orphanage. My deepest longing was to have a home that truly belonged to me. The Montague household, while my biological parents lived, never felt like home. Neither did Theodore's house. A 4-year de facto marriage without legal roots is nothing but a castle in the air. After all, now that I'm gone, the only things I can't let go of are the flowers I planted with my own hands. And of course, Daniel, whom I fought to give birth to. But I know clearly that staying with the Langsaders is the best choice for him. I'm not like others. I've grown used to separation since I was little, so even though I hate to leave him, I haven't let myself drown in that pain. What's more, everyone is happier now that I'm gone. Theodore can marry someone he truly likes. Even though I never really held the title of Mrs. Lancaster in the end, I returned to the small county where I lived for a few years as a child. The housing prices in Sushui County are very low. I'd originally planned to buy a small apartment, but ended up purchasing a tiny courtyard instead. The people there are incredibly simple and kind. Some of the most stable, happy days of my life were spent here. It was a pity, though. The elderly couple who took me in for a few years have passed away. While handling the property transfer, I ran into the older brother who used to play with me when we were kids. William looked delighted when he saw me. Cecilia? Is that you? When the Williams fostered me, they renamed me Cecilia. I was equally surprised to see him. Never in a million years would I have guessed that the small courtyard I'd bought was their old house brother. Long time no see, I said, looking at William. A flood of distant, warm memories rushed over me, and I couldn't hold back my tears, which streamed down my face. Aren't you married? William started to wipe my tears like he used to when we were little, but paused midway, his hand hanging in the air. Where are your husband and child? Didn't they come with you? Cecilia, how have you been all these years? I heard your biological parents found you. Are they good to you? I just shook my head, unable to speak, wanting only to cry my heart out. People are like that, aren't they? We only dared to cry so freely in front of those who love us the most. William and I hadn't seen each other in years, but the moment I laid eyes on him, I turned back into little Cecilia. And he became that big brother who'd always carry me on his back and soothe me when I was upset. They weren't good to you, were they? William's eyes glistened. Of course not. If they were, you wouldn't be here alone, buying a house. Sushui is hundreds of miles from Beijing. Cecilia, just how much suffering have you been through? Brother. I tugged at his sleeve, my swollen eyes curving into a smile through the tears that I saw the neighbor drying lots of wild vegetables earlier. Will you make that noodle soup for me? Like you used to when we were kids? William stared at me for a long moment, then ruffled my hair the way he did back then, smiling. Sure, big brother, I'll make it for you. Theodore went to see Jennifer one last time. At that dinner party. She'd been radiant, like a flower in full bloom, but now, she looked noticeably haggard. Don't call me anymore, he said. We won't see each other again. Either. The house and car will be transferred to your name. He looked at her long hair cascading over her shoulders. No makeup. Looking utterly delicate and pitiful, she still resembled Lilith so much yet. For some reason, his heart felt completely calm, no ripples at all. "I won't come here again," Theodore said. Then turned to leave. Jennifer couldn't help but cry out, "Mr. Lancaster. I don't understand. We were fine just a while ago. You said you liked me." "I never liked you," he replied, "but you told me to stay with you forever. I have a wife," Theodore said. "But you don't like her, do you?" Theodore lowered his eyes, glancing at the wedding ring on his ring finger. Didn't like her? If he truly felt nothing for her, there were 1,000 ways to end that engagement. But from the first time he saw her at the Montagus, he'd felt a flicker of compassion for her. It's just that Elena was so timid, so quiet. Most of the time, she was like a dispensable shadow, easy to overlook, but in the months since she left, Theodore had felt a profound sense of unease. He tried going out with friends, seeking new distractions. He'd even met women who resembled Lilith more than Jennifer did. But none of them stirred anything in him. He rarely thought of Lilith anymore either. Instead, his thoughts kept drifting to Elena. They'd been married for 4 years, yet in private, Elena still blushed and avoided his gaze. When she smiled, there were 2 dimples at the corners of her mouth like Daniel. She had fair skin and a lovely face. Now, thinking back, Theodore realized that in their 4 years of marriage, they'd been intimate often, and he'd never grown tired of her. In the months she'd been gone, he hadn't touched Jennifer once. Just last night, he'd dreamed of Elena and dreams filled with tender, lingering moments. Theodore suddenly told his driver, "Stop by the flower shop." He bought a bouquet of red roses that evening. He also bought a red dress. Elena actually looks beautiful in red. It complements her snow-white skin and floral-like features perfectly. He decided to take a step back. With flowers and a dress in hand, he would go fetch her home. "And so I settled down." William graduated from college and started a business with his classmates. His company is in the city, and he's busy every day. But every weekend, he comes back to Sushui to keep me company. The neighbor it often eases me affectionately. "Cecilia, I think William really likes you. The other day when you were watering flowers in the yard, he stood aside pouring tea. Didn't even notice when the cup overflowed." Peering over the fence, her face crinkled with laughter. "Cecilia, your brother William is almost 30 and still single. Why don't you marry him? After all, when you 2 played house as kids, William was always your bridegroom. Our boy was so jealous back then. William is kind to me, kinder even than he was when we were children. I may be slow on the uptake, but I've been married once. How could I not sense those feelings? Auntie, I'm good for nothing. I never went to college, no special skills," I said with a smile, recalling how Theodore never took me to important banquets, how the Lanksaders never accepted me, how I wasn't even allowed to raise my own child. "William is so outstanding. His future wife must be equally remarkable. If only I'd grown up with my biological parents, studied hard, gotten a good education, confident and capable. Maybe that marriage wouldn't have failed so miserably. Someone like me is probably better off alone." "Who says that?" William's voice suddenly came from beyond the fence. The sun was setting and he wore simple white shirt and black pants. Tall, upright, elegant and refined, the quiet, skinny boy from childhood had grown into a strong, towering man, ready to shield those he cared for from wind and rain. "Cecilia, you're wonderful. Don't belittle yourself." "Am I?" I stared at him, confused. If I were really that wonderful, why didn't my family, husband, or child ever like me? "Of course," William said, pushing open the gate to the yard. "Everyone has a reason to exist. If they couldn't see yours, that's their loss." But I still couldn't believe it. William tried to convince me with simple examples, like cajoling a child. "You have a gift with flowers. Any plant in your hands blooms brighter than others. You gave Huang a massage, and her back pain eased. The other day when I worked overtime, you organized my documents, data, spreadsheets. Simple, clear, saved me so much trouble. If you let me, I could go on for 3 days straight." William laughed, and the aunt joined in. "I could add another 3 hours." The dark cloud over my heart seemed to lift. Just like that night, I told William about Theodore for the first time. I told him about Daniel. William was silent for a long time, saying nothing. Later, He drove back to the city overnight. When I heard his car leave, my heart was surprisingly calm. In these short 20-odd years, I've experienced so many partings I've almost grown numb. I drifted off just before dawn, but was soon woken by the sound of a car again. Dazed, I got up and walked to the window, pulling back the curtain. There was William. Getting out of the car, he was holding something in his hand as he hurried to my door. "Cecilia," he called, his voice soft so as not to wake the neighbors. I hurried to open the door. "Brother?" William stood there, eyes still heavy with tiredness, but shining brightly. "Cecilia." I went back to get my household registration book. "If you're willing, if you don't mind your brother being several years older, we can go register our marriage today." "Register?" "Yes, register," William said earnestly. "Once we do, you'll have a home, Cecilia." The word home probably tempts me 100 times more than most people. What Theodore saw as a mere formality weighed heavily on me, but a child who's lived at others' mercy and wandered from place to place learns early to read the room that asks why I never once asked him to register our marriage. Ridiculous, isn't it? Even someone as lowly as me still spurns charity, Cecilia. I was too young back then. "I couldn't keep you with us," William said. "Later, when I went to college in Beijing, I searched everywhere for news of you. When I heard your family had found you, I was so happy for you. Your biological parents were rich. I thought, surely they'd cherish their long-lost daughter. I was just a poor student then, so I didn't dare disturb you." His eyes filled with deep regret. "If I'd known they treated you badly, I would have come to take you away. Mom and Dad talked about you often. When Mom passed, she called your name. They don't want you. Don't like you, but I do, Cecilia. I never planned to marry. But then fate sent you back to me." William's voice caught. "This time, I don't want to miss my chance." Tears had streamed down my face before I even realized it. When I was little, I was abducted and sold. My foster mother later had a son and no longer wanted to keep me. I was often beaten, left out in the cold, with endless chores to do. It was William's parents who took pity on me, taking me in for years, but then my foster mother came and dragged me back by force, selling me to someone else. I was beaten often in that home, so I ran away secretly. I'd been to welfare centers, orphanages, taken in briefly by others. Those wandering days felt like they'd never end. I thought about returning to the Williams home, but feared my foster mother would catch me and sell me again, so I never dared come back. I never knew William had been searching for me, never knew Mrs. Williams had thought of me even as she passed, never imagined I'd meet William again like this. Maybe this was real fate. All that happened with the Mentagas and Lanksaders, just another ordeal I'd endured to reach this day. Tears poured down. But I looked at William, smiling and shaking my head. "Brother, I could register with you today." "Cecilia," I saw the light in William's eyes flicker, as if about to shatter. It made my heart ache terribly. I reached out, gently taking his hand. "My household registration book is still at the Mentagas. Going there and back will take a whole day." I never expected retrieving my household registration book from the Mentagas would be so easy, nor did I expect my parents to be so kind and affectionate once. I'd longed for this desperately. But now it felt trivial. As I left with the book, they smiled and urged, "After you register, bring Theodore back for dinner." I knew they were mistaken, but saw no need to explain why stir up trouble. Given how they acted, if they knew I was marrying a man with less than 1/100th of Theodore's wealth, they'd probably drop dead from anger after leaving the Mentagas. I hailed a taxi straight to the airport. On the way, William called, "Cecilia, I can't wait. I just landed in Beijing. Wait for me. Well, register here." "In Beijing?" I couldn't help but smile, pressing my lips together. "Okay. I'll wait." Hanging up, I told the driver, "Sir, I'm not going to the airport anymore. I need to get to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Could you hurry, please?" The day after registering with William, he took me shopping: gold jewelry, clothes, 2 luxury bags. I didn't much care for them, but William said, "If others have them, you must too." He took me to visit his parents' graves, then we held a small banquet in our hometown. He wanted to host a proper wedding for me in the city later. He'd specially bought a red dress for me to wear at the banquet. Trying it on, I stood awkwardly in the yard, lifting the hem. It was the height of spring. At dusk, the crop blossoms still lingered, not yet asleep. And for some reason, Theodore's words that day popped into my head. Does red not suit me? I asked. William shook his head. This man, always so self-restrained, even asking permission before taking my hand, suddenly leaned down and kissed me. My wife is exquisite. I froze, then smiled, pressing my lips together as William pulled back, ending the soft kiss. I tilted my face up and slowly closed my eyes. Theodore stood outside the shabby fence. The red roses in his hand fell to the ground, petals scattering. He saw the sweet smile on Elena's lips, the dimples that made her beauty shine brighter, and it pierced his heart like a blade. He lost control, shoving open the bamboo gate with a crash. The noise made Elena and the man turn. Theodore? Elena's face was full of shock. The man pulled her tightly to him, his expression sharp with wariness. Theodore didn't spare William a glance. He stepped forward, grabbing Elena's wrist. Come back with me. But Elena didn't move. She even wrenched her hand free. Theodore turned back, his eyes narrowing slightly. Elena, I'll say it one more time. Come back with me. Theodore, I made myself clear before. I won't go back. Didn't you always want to register our marriage? Theodore pulled out the household registration book he'd been carrying. Elena, come back with me now, and we'll go register tomorrow. But I'm already married. Theodore felt as if something had exploded in his ears. What did you say? I'm already married, William, and I registered yesterday. I met his gaze calmly down. I guessed yesterday to get my documents. Theodore seemed to laugh, bitter and disbelieving. Elena, don't forget. You were with me for 4 years. You bore me Daniel. I haven't forgotten, but I must correct one thing. We never registered our marriage. It had no legal validity. So, Theodore, I was never truly married to you. Go home from now on. You'll have to work hard to take good care of Daniel. With that, I turned away, no longer looking at him. Brother, let's go inside. I'm a little tired. I took William's hand, and he immediately gripped it tightly. All right, I'll take you to rest, Elena. Theodore stepped forward again, seizing my arm once more. Daniel misses you. My throat tightened instantly, and the next second, my eyes reddened. Daniel was barely 3, still too young to understand anything even if he wasn't close to me. I'd never resented him. Some mother-child bonds, I supposed, were just shallow. Come back with me. I'll have someone fetch Daniel from now on. The 3 of us can be a family. My heart ached, nearly bringing me to tears. The irony was overwhelming. So he'd known all along, known how much I missed Daniel, how I dreamed of being reunited with him. Yet he'd stood by, watching Lady Lancaster take Daniel away, refusing to help me now that I wanted nothing more than to leave. He spoke of bringing Daniel back. So Daniel could be brought back, so some filial piety didn't have to be obeyed. Theodore, it's not needed anymore. I wrenched my hand free once more. No need for the 3 of us to be a family. If Daniel misses me, he can come see me. And if you allow it, I'll go back to visit him regularly. Well, no. Daniel is your biological son. You nearly died giving birth to him. You fought for his life. His voice sharpened. If you abandon him, aren't you afraid I'll remarry? That my new wife might mistreat him? I'd never seen Theodore like this. Even when angry before, he kept a cool tone, but now, his eyes were wild. His handsome face contorted into something almost feral. They'd used Daniel to threaten me when he was born. Now that I was leaving, they wielded the same weapon. But I no longer feared losing anything. William had taught me, I am Elena first, then a wife. Or a mother. For years, I'd lived in a daze, losing myself entirely. It wasn't all others' fault that they looked down on me, that they didn't care. Now, I needed to be myself first. Daniel is the child I fought to give birth to. That he's your flesh and blood to. He has been raised by Lady Lancaster since he was a month old. She's doted on him these 3 years. I doubt she'd let anyone hurt him. I took a deep breath. And if that day ever comes, Theodore, I'll fight for custody of him in court. So you're dead set on being with him? I nodded, yes. All over a red dress? Theodore sneered. Elena, in these 4 years, what I've given you, how much can he possibly give you? It's not just about a red dress. I lifted my face to William. In his eyes, there was anger, fury, but more than that, heartache and remorse. Theodore, you can like many people, but my husband's heart and eyes are only for me. I've cut ties with Jennifer. And Lilith Ivy Elon let her go. For 4 years. We were husband and wife. I wasn't completely without feelings for you. Theodore's brows furrowed deeply. He clearly hated saying this. Hated admitting he now had feelings for me, as if liking someone like me was a condescending favor from a superior, something unseemly. But I no longer craved the scraps of affection he deigned to give. In the deepening twilight, the cropple blossoms I'd planted were still beautiful, even more so than the ones in the Lancaster garden. Theodore said he'd let go. Hadn't I too, for years? Long enough to wear away the infatuation of our first meeting. Now, I'm going to live a quiet, ordinary life. Theodore, I once liked you, but now, that feeling is gone, completely. Go back, don't come looking for me again. You deserve a wife with the knowledge and experience to match you. Someone you can be proud to show off. Not someone like me who only knows how to tend to flowers. These for years. I've wasted your time. I'm sorry, Theodore, standing in the night wind. I took one last look at him. In truth, back then, I was truly grateful he hadn't broken our engagement and had married me. Life in the Montague household had felt like torture every second. When Theodore took me away, giving me a temporary home, it had been a salvation for me. After all, if he'd backed out of the marriage, the Montagus might have sold me off like merchandise to some random man, and for someone who'd been sold time and again as a child, that would have been a living nightmare. So even now, I hoped he'd live well for the rest of his life. I didn't want to become lifelong enemies with Daniel's father. If we could part peacefully, that would be for the best. Theodore's perspective. Elena and William's wedding was quite grand for William's financial status back then. The budget was unusually high. But he was willing to splurge, and others naturally praised his deep affection. Elena cried at the wedding. Quite bitterly. She'd never cried that hard when she married me. She even said, "My name is Elena." Every syllable sweet. But the first half of my life was filled with nothing but bitterness. I'm so grateful to my husband. Hearing those words stung. In those 4 years she was married to me, I truly don't think I treated her badly. In my circle, men keeping mistresses or lovers was common. What wealthy heir hadn't had 7 or 8 flings? But I'd only once, in a moment of folly, taken Jennifer as a lover. And even then, I'd grown tired of her quickly. Beyond that, I kept myself in check. I refused to believe her husband, William, could truly be faithful forever. Men, even those without money, stray how much more so when they have wealth. So I quietly eased up on him. William's company grew. He made more and more money, and with it, more temptation. When that happened, a temperament like Elena's surely wouldn't tolerate it. If she and William divorced, I could take Daniel to find her. And maybe she'd come back to us. But in the blink of an eye, over a decade passed. William never once stumbled. Elena bore him a daughter, who looked exactly like her. I was consumed with jealousy. Daniel grew up, looking more and more like me. The Langsaters were all good looking, but resembling a lonely man like me wasn't such a good thing. Yet his bond with Elena grew stronger. They were mother and son. After all, how could they harbor the kind of hatred you read about in novels? Daniel sometimes stayed with her for days. Elena would naturally ask him to look after his little sister, and the two got along splendidly. Sometimes Elena came to the house to see Daniel. While they talked, I'd loiter outside, tending to the flowers, feeling rather superfluous. Every time, I wanted to drive her back, but William would always come to pick her up personally, guarding her against me like I was a flood or a beast. But maybe that was for the best. With my example as a warning, William would never make the mistakes all men are said to make, and so, Elena's remaining days would be nothing but sweetness.